Do you guys remember that song? It takes two to make a thing all right. Yeah, some of you may remember, others of you may not know absolutely what I'm talking about because you're newer generation, but look it up. It takes two to make a thing all right, was what the song said. In a relationship, there are two people. There are always two people, unless, of course, there's a third party, and that is permissible amounts two people that agree to that. But oftentimes and not when we talk about cheating, that third party is not somebody that both people agree should be in the relationship. But it does take two to make a thing right. Today, I want to talk to you about change and adaptability, because a lot of the times in relationships, when problems occur, we tend to look at the other person and we tend to think that the other person is the cause for our problems, or the other person has the problem and we do not have that problem. And I've created videos about that already. But I'm going to take a different spin today. The spin that I'm going to take is helping you to understand that two people make it a relationship, and two people need individualistic work in order to make the relationship work. Let me say that again. It's not one person that needs to work on themselves in a relationship. It's both people. Both people have to put in effort. Both people have to put in time, and both people have to put in a commitment to want to be better, not for the other person, but for themselves. And a lot of times in relationships, one person is demanding that this other person gets themselves together for them. And that's not realistic, because the only long lasting change is change that you effect on your own behalf. You cannot change for another person. You cannot change to please another person, nor should you want to change to accommodate another person. What you need to do is change because you see a need for change. You recognize there's a need for change, and that change will help you become a better individual, a better partner, a better spouse, a better parent, or whatever. So how does this happen? How do you adapt? How do you change your personality? Personality, I believe, is something that is written. It's like a DNA code. Some children are born with personalities right off the bat, right? They're either very tenacious or they're very strong-willed. Those are things that you cannot remove from an individual unless you try to break them and purposely do so. But the ability to change is something that is a requirement when there's dysfunction present. A lot of times people will look. I remember I had the perfect example to tell you. There was a time when I worked at this job, right? And I was at the front desk, and the lady that was there, I could not stand her. We'll call her Nilly. Nilly was a pain in the butt. I just couldn't stand her. She was nosy. She was all up in my business. She wouldn't leave me alone. She didn't give you space. She didn't respect boundaries. I'm sure everybody here knows about someone like that. So it got to the point where I wanted to quit. I really wanted to quit my job, and I wanted to leave because of her, not because of anything I was doing, but because she got under my skin. It got to the point where I was unsettled. It got to the point where my life became disrupted, and I would go home and actually think about how I could not go back the next day. But here's what happened. One day I determined, because I was in a position where I couldn't quit and I had to go back, I decided I was going to take a different approach. The approach I took was, instead of allowing her to dictate my emotions or allowing her to affect me, I decided that I would behave a certain way. I would change my behavior. I would not focus on her behavior. I focus on my responses, my reactions, and the things I did to add to whatever, dialogue we were having that made it dysfunctional. Imagine this. She and I became best friends. She even brought me gifts. She even celebrated me, and she even gave me constructive advice. Did she change? No, she was still the same person. But that's the point here I'm trying to make. A lot of times when you're focused on the other person's behavior and you're thinking how this person is affecting you, the only thing you can control is your own behavior, your own input and output to what that person is doing to you, or what that person is doing to affect you. You have to change. You have to do the work on self. You can do the work on self in a relationship. It takes two. If both of you are arguing, it's because both of you have something to say and one person doesn't know how to back down. If both of you are unhappy, it's because one of you has decided to let the other person make you unhappy, and you feel that you don't have choices. Repeat after me. You always have choices. Whether you choose to take them or not is up to you. And there's the exception. There's, like I always say, the arranged marriages or marrying into families or marrying an abusive. There's exceptions. And I'm talking about the exceptions. I'm talking about the general rule here of relationships where it takes two people and one person is thrown off kilter by the other person in the relationship. So one of the first things I need for you as a couple to realize is that when you're having relationship issues, whether you're married or single or not, you need to stop and take inventory of your own behavior. You need to stop and think about what you need to do to pay attention, one, two, to be aware of what's going on, and three, to have a realistic approach to it. Easier said than done. There are times when I've lost my just because it's my personality. But over the years, I've learned to work on that. It doesn't mean I'm perfect, but it means that I no longer am reactive. How many of you are reactive instead of being proactive? How many of you are proactive? And even though you're proactive, the other person is not changing. The other person is not recognizing your change, or they're trying to sabotage your change, your change. That's okay. I'm not saying that this has to be an absolute certainty that it's going to work out the way that you wanted it to work out. But if you work on yourself, it's going to work out the way the universe expects it to work out. You have to change. You have to become adaptable. You have to pay attention. You have to stop resisting the opposition, because it's not what you want. It's not what you want to hear. It's not what you want to deal with, and deal with it. Deal with it by listening to what's really going on here. Trying, if you cannot find a solution on your own, find help. A lot of couples end up going to individualistic counseling, which is awesome because it takes two. Without both people working on themselves, the relationship cannot work. Let me say that again. With both people working on themselves, it doesn't have to be through counseling, but without both people making a commitment to improve themselves, to become better for the relationship, it is not going to work. One of the things I wrote down here is you need to start expecting the other person to change. You need to stop putting all the responsibility on the other person to change. And therefore, by putting that responsibility in that person, you're putting the responsibility in that person to change the relationship. No, you have as much equal responsibility in this relationship as the other person. You cannot say that because of this person, the relationship has to get better. Because if this person changes, the relationship will be awesome or great. It will be perfect if you cannot talk as much. It'd be perfect if you stop going out late at night. It would be perfect if you would just do things a certain way. It would be perfect. No, that's a myth. Perfection doesn't come because you have a list of things that you need change. And if the person meets this criteria, then things will be better in the relationship. A relationship is about two people collaborating and cooperating, and that becomes a partnership. Stop thinking about your marriage as your wife and your husband. Start thinking about your marriage as my partner that is there to help me, balance me out, to help me when I'm weak. He's strong. When he's weak, I'm strong. When we need carrying, we can both recognize where we're at and carry each other. Change is not a bad thing. Resisting the change can have a lot of detrimental consequences to your relationship. If you feel that you are not the cause of anything and the other person is, I've already talked about, that's not cool. But more importantly, instead of engaging in the chaos, instead of resisting the process and you recognize the problem, but you're unable to figure out what the problem is because you're not standing still. Is because you're not taking inventory of yourself first, which means your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, what is motivating you, what is triggering you. There's a lot of things, and you cannot always do this on your own. As I always say, ask for help. If the process of change is too much for you, if you're resistant to change because you don't understand the process, or because you've never embarked on the process, or you don't want to go down that process, change. Imagine this. We live in a world where people are saying, I demand this of you. You need to do this for me. And if you don't do it, this is not going to happen, or this is what's going to happen. It sounds like a dictatorship to me. Start today. Get out of that process. Get out of the habit of doing things that will destroy your relationship instead of things that are designed to repair, help, mend, and eventually provide you with a healthy relationship. That's the goal. The goal is healthy living, regardless of if it's two of you or one of you. My name is Ingrid Felton. As always, thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing to the videos. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for your comments. And as always, tell others, bring other people, help me to help the world and not just this little niche that I have. Okay. Have a great day. Bye.